Hey everyone, welcome back to the Self Betterment Project, episode 16. This week, we're sitting with Alex Berditas to talk about what it takes to become a successful photographer in 2019, dealing with criticism and hardships along the way, realizing how to push past your failures every step of the way.
And I think that getting yourself wrapped up thinking this is good enough is a huge mistake. Nothing's good enough.
You can always go check out Alex's work at alexberdidasphoto.com or his Instagram page at alex_PRIEDITIS. Besides that, grab a cup of coffee and enjoy this week's show. So welcome to the podcast, Alex. It's good to see you.
Yes, this is you too.
How have you been?
Good overall.
And okay, so before we start, let me have you introduce yourself a little bit, because I haven't seen you for a while too, so I'm dying to know what you've been up to.
Okay.
So
my name is Alex. I work as a photography instructor and currently a professional photographer based out of Ottawa and in Toronto. I'm also kind of juggling that aspect of owning a business and being my own business owner and stuff like that with school. So I'm still a student.
Oh yeah, what do you study?
So earth science and biology double major.
Wait. So you're doing a double major, then you're still
working
as a professional
photographer.
So you okay? All right, I can respect that. That's quite the hustle.
Yeah, you get a little bit.
Yeah. Oh,
it's hard juggling the time.
A little bit. Yeah, a little bit. That's crazy. No, you get a lot. I can tell.
Yeah.
Okay, and then because I never knew that you got into photography like ever. I think I found you through Instagram once.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, oh, wait a minute, that's kind of crazy. Then I looked at your work and you're like, oh shit.
Yeah.
He's actually amazing.
Actually competent, yeah.
Yeah, I know. Because I've seen a lot of amateur photographers. They're like, oh, here's my photography, blah, blah, blah. A lot of people like to think oh, I have a camera.
Yeah, and it sucks.
That's photography. Yeah, it's
yeah. Yeah, I think that most people that have their own camera have a kind of inflated sense of their own work.
Yeah.
And the trick to knowing that you're good is when you feel really horrible at it all the time. That's the secret.
That's the secret. So you always gotta feel horrible.
Yeah.
And then you're like, okay, no, I'm actually getting somewhere.
Yeah.
That makes actual sense, because there's a lot of people who are like, oh no, my work is good, and then you should check it out. Then I'm like, it's just they blur the background with a lens, and they're like, photography. Boom.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay.
I used to think that way too.
But you got a lot of better. I mean, you have 2 accounts, no?
I have 3 accounts, but I only use one of them now.
Which one is that?
My Alex_Berditas.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I had a Ducks and Waterfowl account and a Berditas Gallery account as well. The Ducks and Waterfowl one I haven't posted to it for a while because I just haven't done that much duck photography.
Oh, there's not enough ducks in Ottawa.
Yeah, in the winter they come in.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so I'm hoping to do a big duck fine art gallery type thing with I bought a $5,000 camera just for this.
Just for shooting ducks?
Just for shooting ducks.
Damn.
Hoping to, send it off to,
okay.
a magazine or something like that. Hopefully they'll post it.
Oh, that's actually pretty cool.
Yeah.
See, how do you manage to find the time to, go to school and then go duck hunting? Essentially, you go duck hunting.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. I don't know how I find the time to do it. I've calculated how many photos I've taken in the last year, and it's hundreds of thousands of photos. So I'm getting massive amount of time through in photography, and I don't know how I find the time to be completely honest.
Do you go after class? You just go home, you take your camera, and walk out or something?
Yeah.
That's what you do?
Yeah, I'm known to carry my camera to class.
Dang.
Sometimes I'll carry 2 cameras, slung both of them on me to class.
To class.
Just
in case a duck flies by, oh shoot.
Yeah.
That's $1 million shot.
Especially in the winter around Carleton campus, there's owls, there's lots of various weird species of ducks, lots of hawks. I even saw a really rare gyrfalcon that was there.
What?
World's largest falcon. It's a big
falcon. It's a big bird.
It's a big bird.
A big boy.
Yeah, I was hunting some killdeer, which are these little sandpiper-like birds.
Oh shoot!
Yeah.
So like you're actually doing it. When did you get into photography? Because I think when we were in high school, I never.
Yeah, no. Beginning of the year, believe it or not.
No, I don't.
Yeah.
No, yeah, I don't believe.
Beginning of the year. Yeah,
Beginning of this year, 2019.
2019.
Get out! No.
Yeah, and I'm working as teaching people photography.
So you've went from you literally started. You just went pro. Like this is like I don't know what to say. It's like you're either really good, you have a knack for this, or like
yeah. So
like you work really fucking hard every fucking 2019. Yeah.
It's combination of both. To be completely honest, I would love to tell people that you can get really good really fast.
Yeah.
But the reality is you can't. I started off at a point like I was just naturally good at a lot of the stuff. So I started off at a point where people kind of end off at sometimes.
Oh, yeah, okay.
It's because I do a lot of other things. I do like a lot of the hand holding techniques and the way I'm tracking birds and stuff. I learned that through shooting, right? Shooting and archery, competitive archery.
Oh,
so I have
right.
a very good eye for getting things in focus, getting all the tech, and I'm very technical. And then I also have ADHD, which stacks on. So I get really obsessive about things.
Right.
So then when you get really obsessive about something that you're good at, you end up getting quite good pretty quickly.
Oh yeah. I can see that. And you just start out of nowhere. So like, I thought it was like a deep rooted passion you never discovered.
Oh no, I had a passion for birds. I didn't have a passion for photography.
What do you mean you had a passion for birds? What does that mean?
Oh, I just love birds.
You just like birds.
I just like birds.
The feathers and the beaks. Wow, that really gets to you.
I took an ornithology class and I got 105% in it. Best work ever. And I told myself, you know what? My prof was doing wildlife photography.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, well, I'll just do it too. I think I can do a better job.
Oh my god.
So like you kind of got started out of a bit of arrogance.
Right.
And you know, my original work was good for someone who started, but it wasn't good.
Oh, okay. So that's like, it's okay. Yeah, that's a lot to go to. And you started this. I have a lot of respect because a lot of people start. Firstly, a lot of people start a lot of things, and I've seen, but they don't continue it. Like 2 weeks later, they'll just drop it. Mm-hmm. And you just went full psycho.
Yeah. So I originally started by borrowing equipment. Mm-hmm. I managed to inherit some professional lenses and a camera body from my mom, who did the same thing, quit after 2 weeks or so.
Okay, fair enough.
And I kind of rolled off of that, and I worked on my technique and ability to get close to animals. I knew because I couldn't afford a really nice lens at the time. So I just had I had like one or two professional lenses and a few like entry-level lenses.
Right.
So I'd use the entry-level lenses because there's only one that was long enough for wildlife. And then after a while, I started, I think I need to upgrade my equipment. And I decided to buy a 400 millimeter 5.6 lens. It's about that long. And I still use that today. And it was a professional lens. It was a huge leap of faith that I did not have the money.
Right, yeah.
And I basically had to ask for forgiveness from my parents afterwards.
Okay.
But it paid off. Because a few weeks after I got that lens, I took a picture of a baby wood duck.
Right.
This is probably about a month after I got that lens, thinking about it. I took a picture of a baby wood duck, entered that into a competition, and I just got the results back and I won.
Hey.
Nature Canada photography competition. It's one of the. I'll be in a calendar now. That picture. I'm pretty impressed. Just hearing that news has made me want to like double down even more and buy the 500 f4 lens, a $12,000 lens.
Just the biggest lens.
Biggest lens I can get.
Go up to NASA. I just need a satellite at this point. No, yeah, but definitely when you succeed like that, that's crazy, especially for a month.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A month of the new, like just having a new piece of equipment for that long, it's difficult to get a really good result.
Right.
But the fact that I got like a competition winning result.
That's
so I did not win the grand prize.
Okay, but like it's you still.
But then again, I was competing against professional wildlife photographers as well in this competition.
Oh, yeah.
So I did pretty well.
That's amazing, dude.
Yeah. And then, eventually I started, getting into other areas of photography, like macro photography and also portrait photography. Mm-hmm. Because I realized that wildlife photography, while I'm good at it, it's not necessarily the most marketable area. And that's one of the tricky things with being a professional now. So I've only been professional for a relatively short period of time.
Right.
Before everything I do is kind of fast-tracked.
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely.
But just knowing sometimes what your heart wants is not what you should get. is what kind of saddens me a little bit about it. But it's rewarding, and the fact that I'm getting paid for something I love doing is great.
That's still great, because you now you're teaching. You still teach in Toronto, or you teach in Ottawa?
I teach in Ottawa. In Toronto, I will run my own workshops for people who don't really. They're actually advanced workshops, so they're meant for people who are either trying to get into professional photography but don't have experience in things like lighting.
Right. Yeah.
Like lighting is the big one. That's the reason I even started this. I only started this a few weeks ago, actually, where I'm running my own workshops here, because I realized that there's actually quite a bit of demand from advanced photographers for learning things like lighting and lens rendering and more advanced topics that you don't hear about as often. They don't teach you the same level. And so they're usually one-on-one workshops, and it costs about $650
per workshop.
For a workshop,
right?
But I think for a lot of people, the cost is worth it.
Yeah, definitely. Especially if you're a photographer, like, you know what you're getting into, then for sure. Where do you? If I were to tell my audience to find your workshop, where would they find it? Because I know there could be a lot of.
So if you're interested in the workshop, I recommend private messaging me on Instagram.
Right.
You could also go to my website, which is linked to my Instagram. It's alexperditasphoto.com, and you can contact me through there. And you can also see my portfolios there. And eventually I'll be selling prints through there as well. I haven't set that up yet.
Oh, but you will. But like, you're actually, like, I've seen a lot of photographers, so seeing you actually, like, succeeding in the way that you are is actually mind-blowing.
Yeah,
that's actually really cool.
I'm genuinely shocked at my own ability.
That's what you want to hear from a professional. It's like, you're so good. How'd you get here? I honestly am so surprised, just as you are.
Yeah. I guess it's just having consistent habits and hard work.
Right. Right.
Like I was very bad at taking portraits of people. Now, at least to a certain degree, good enough.
Somewhat good. You got better.
Good enough to teach it.
Yeah. Okay.
Good enough to teach it. So, you can't do, you teach. So
right.
At least the can't do aspect of that.
Oh, okay, yeah. You see, the thing, it was actually really surprising to me when you reached out to me wanting to be on a podcast.
Yeah.
Because especially how young your professional career in photography's been.
Yeah.
Because especially then too, because when you messaged me, I was also recording a podcast with Sai, one of my other friends. Mm-hmm. So when you did message me, I was like, oh, cool, Alex did that. So I wonder what we would talk about. Mm-hmm. But then I learned a little bit more about your photography and things like that. I'm like, oh no, that's actually like we can like have a full on conversation.
Yeah.
How you, I find it interesting because in the Self Betterment Project, I'm really like hung up. I'm just as crazy about it as you are with some of your photography. It's like I love the work of self development. I love how people in any regard, in any aspect or any place of work, how they got to where they are, or how are they pushing forward. Because I know, even you say like, oh, maybe you may not know how you got here kind of thing, or like you're kind of surprised. Yeah, fair enough. But like, you had your fair share of like thoughts. It wasn't like all just, it's not like you just tripped into success.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, I definitely went through a lot of hard work. I'll be honest, I think about photography almost 24/7. I calculated how many hours I've spent thinking about photography and doing photography-related things, and it's probably around that 10,000 hour mark now.
No, but yeah, definitely, honest. Yeah, just completely addicted.
Yeah, and once you get addicted to something like this, and you just can't shake it, at least with photography, it's not it's not self-destructive.
Okay, it's not like being addicted to cocaine or meth.
Cocaine, yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah, yeah. So like but it's really good because when the birds went away in kind of the summer, you have a bit of a gap period. I got really into macro photography, and all the techniques translate over to different areas.
Right.
And going from a very like macro and wildlife photography, are very difficult areas of photography to do well. And then swinging into portraits, it's so much easier.
Oh, right.
Right. So portraits, it's because you can actually tell your subject what you want them to do.
You can't talk to a squirrel and be like, "Yo, stay there for a minute."
Yeah, with the wildlife photography, it's a lot of disappointment.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, the reason I actually decided to come on here was because I saw that Samaya was on your podcast before.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh, I'm a photographer too. I guess I'll come on there.
You saw, hey, that person took pictures and she's on it, so I could be on it too.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, I think Brian still thought that I came on here as almost like a joke, but I actually genuinely wanted to talk.
Yeah, Brian was the one who messaged me. He's like, Alex would like to be in part of your podcast.
Yeah.
I'm like, just out of nowhere.
Yeah, Brian actually was trying to get me to wear like a somewhat ridiculous outfit.
For the podcast?
For the podcast, yeah.
What? Where is it?
Oh, I didn't have time to pick it up.
Oh,
today,
man.
Yeah, unfortunately.
But you still have like a dope hat, so I can respect that.
Yeah. This is actually one thing I've realized you have to have. If you're a photographer, you need to have your signature item.
Oh, and that hat is your signature item?
The hat and the excessively large camera.
Oh, right. That makes sense.
That camera doesn't need to be that big, but it is that big.
Oh, okay. So it's kind of like, it doesn't really serve a purpose besides like, it's who you are.
Yeah, it's
personality. The lens actually is like this big.
It's a personality trait. Yeah.
Right, I can respect that, but like it's funnier to know like I'm all about like, oh my god, self-development, blah blah blah, and you're like, I saw somebody on, so I want to go on too, because why not?
Well, I thought that like she was talking about her experience as a photographer and trying to get into the industry, and I thought maybe I'll talk about mine because coming from a different genre of photography, but some of the struggles are still there, especially with self-doubt.
Oh yeah,
right. Like the self-doubt is debilitating at times. I'll have times where I think that I am the worst photographer in the world. And I'll look at my photos and say, this is garbage. This is worthless garbage. No one would want this. I've
compared to somebody that I've seen, your photography is easily like one of the better ones I've seen. And it's funny how when you really get into something, you always like massively criticize and doubt your work every single turn.
Oh yeah, for sure.
How do you get over? How do you get over as a photographer? Like, say, I don't know when was the time that you really looked at your work and you were like, maybe this isn't it, and it started affecting you at all? Because I assume if people did it as a hobby, it's not that big of a deal. You're kind of like, I'm just taking pictures.
So that would be when my grandmother wanted me to teach her how to do photography. So my grandmother actually is a professional photographer. Oh. And she wanted me to teach some of the advanced techniques that I was using and stuff like that. And that was kind of when I started doing my own work, because I saw her people that taught her before. I went on their portfolios, and some of them are considered world-class photographers. I'm like, wow, I have to stay at that level. And don't be wrong, some of my work is close to world-class in certain pictures that I've done.
Right.
But the reality as a photographer is that 90% of your work is going to be garbage. 90% of your work is garbage.
And that 10% is going to be like, you're like okay with.
Yeah. So I take, like sometimes, especially for wildlife, I'll go out and I'll take 2,000 pictures in a day, and I'll have one that is decent.
2,000. That's a strange conversion rate. Especially when you think about like when anybody else wants to do anything, you expect like your first work to be like, this is good. But then you're faced with failure to that degree.
You're faced with wildlife photography is the area where you're faced with failure the most, because you're not in control of everything.
Right.
If I'm taking macro pictures in a studio of a plant or something, I'll take 5. I'll basically take one shot, be excellent, and then I'll refine it and it'll be perfect. It's not that simple though in wildlife, where you don't have control of anything.
Right. Yeah.
And same with like portraiture it's not as frustrating as wildlife is, but sometimes, I'll be honest, sometimes your person that you're photographing is just ugly. and you can't do much about that.
Post-processing is not going to save that?
I mean, if you're good at Photoshop, like you can liquefy them and make them bulk them up like 50 pounds or drop them down. And like, I've had pictures that I've sent to people that I've dropped them down like a good 100 pounds and they haven't noticed.
Are you sure you should be saying this here? Because people...
Oh, it's fine. It's fine. I'm not telling anyone who this was. But...
How many portraits did you even take? Did you even upload? 2, 3, 4?
I don't upload that many portraits on my Instagram. I take a lot more than I do. I take a lot of them as practice.
Oh, right. Okay.
That's one thing that a lot of photographers forget about. You don't just go on the shoot and take pictures. You have to practice.
Right. Yeah.
Basically none of my portraits are for work. Like very few of them are work-related portraits that I'll do. I'm just trying to keep consistently practicing to keep to get better and better. So then when I am called in to do something, a picture for someone, I can do it to a very high-end degree. And that's one thing that people forget. You don't need to go out, hire a bunch of models as practice. Use your friends.
Right.
Your results in the end will look worse by using your friends oftentimes than using professional models. But the practice that you're putting in there with people who are much harder to photograph is going to make you a much better photographer. Right.
I definitely agree with that aspect. Because like in any field of work, especially if you're like doing it by yourself, if you're like making something for yourself, 90% is definitely going to just be practice and trash. Absolutely. Every single time. But so many of the time, even like me and I'm sure like almost everyone else, we get like so caught up in the like, oh, I did it and I wanted to make this into my work, but this product that I made or this picture that I shot, I wanted it to be like my work versus that 90% of trash and practice that it turned out to be.
Yeah, and the world's best photographers, most of their work is actually most of the work they don't put out there will be crap, and there's a reason why they don't put it out there.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Yeah.
Sometimes I have to have putting out work that I think is crap, and it's because it was something cool, and that's the hard part of balancing being a nature lover and someone who loves animals with being a professional photographer, because you might think this is the most awesome animal, but it could be the worst picture in the world.
Right. So it's kind of like juggling what you care about versus what you said, like the market demand of sorts.
Yes.
Or what's really happening out there in the industry.
Yeah, like I've had pictures that I put out there that would lop off like a good 20% of my Instagram following just from posting out there.
Wow.
And I sometimes I wish I actually put out a lower level of work. Because then at least people won't expect a certain level. Because every time it actually causes me to lack to stop like gaining followers.
Right.
Because there's a certain level of very high quality that people want, that people are expecting, and sometimes you can just get good instead of excellent.
But in comparison to that, it looks worse.
It looks bad. Yeah.
Yeah.
Even though if you put that on someone else, an amateur photographer, it was a lot worse.
Absolutely.
It'd be like the best image ever.
Yeah.
Yeah, just relative to.
Yeah, so it's more contrast of like what you've been doing consistently, for sure. I definitely see that too. How do you manage? Because you have an insane kind of pursuit.
Yeah.
I'd like to think. I don't know if that's like borderline insanity or like that's like dedicated hard work. But in my retrospect, I feel like you have to be somewhat insane.
I agree. I think that the fact that I have crippling ADHD and I'm obsessed about photography is the only reason. It's not the only reason. I was naturally good at it coming in, but it's the reason why I'm growing at a very rapid rate.
Right.
Like I have pictures on there that are kind of like some of the portraits I've done. You could imagine them. That's actually my first day out with that new light modifier or something.
Actually?
Yeah. So generally, what happens with me is I screw up a lot.
Yeah.
First time out with a new piece of gear, and then I sleep on it, think about it a lot, spend a good 24 hours just really, really trying to master it through other forms of practice, and then when I come back to another shoot with it, I got it solid. And that's one thing that a lot of people are never able to do, unfortunately. They're never able to actually fully understand what they have. So my thinking is that you have to go in, understand the thing that you want to get before you buy it. Then buy it, you're going to suck with it for a little while. Practice it, and then you come back, and you've mastered it. That's my strategy on the topic. But like I talk to someone who does that routinely when I don't know anyone else who can do that. So it's
yeah. I see that. It's fair enough because like otherwise it's kind of like what I want to know is you're still a human being. First,
yes,
we can confirm you're not an animal in a human costume
or an alien with a funny hat.
That's where. So you're the alien escaped out of Area 51. Okay, that makes sense. But as any human being. What interests me about you, as much as your photography gets me, like it's really good, don't get me wrong, but what I want to know is that how do you manage with that consistency, that insane like what do you don't you ever wake up and wonder, like, even if you feel bad, like how do you overcome these kind of hurdles?
sometimes it's really hard to overcome the hurdles when you feel bad about yourself.
Yeah.
Like it can get you quite depressed, actually, just thinking about your work as like not good.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
so you spent so much time doing something, and you feel like you're not good at it. Getting yourself out there is really hard. But what I always come back to is I will look at my pictures, some of my best pictures that I've done, and remind myself, I did that. And I'll compare them to pictures that are considered world class, and like I'm pretty close. I can keep getting better, and I did that throughout my entire photography career. So like I started off my wildlife photography journey by looking at quite nice pictures, quite nice wildlife pictures, and I told myself I can do that too. And I got into it, and I was like, this is pretty hard, but I can work on it, and I know I can do it. And then I got to that point pretty quickly. And that's motivation to be honestly, I have a motivation to be the best wildlife photographer in the world. I want to be the best. Actually, I want to be the best photographer, period. In the world. And I know that that's not going to happen, realistically, because it's not an objective. You can't objectively be the best.
Yeah.
But I'll at least be pretty damn good if I keep striving for that.
Yeah.
And I think that getting yourself wrapped up thinking this is good enough is a huge mistake. Nothing's good enough. Nothing's good enough.
As insane as that sounds, it's actually true.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
If you once you think that your work is good enough, you failed, in my opinion. You failed your photography journey. You need to for me, the drive is that it's never good enough.
It's kind of paradoxical because like if you succeed in something, you want to be able to bask in that kind of like, I did amazing. This is something I made, and it's amazing. But the fact of the matter is, when you start anything for yourself, ultimately, being more, I don't want to say it like this, but being more miserable ultimately seems to be the only way to climb to the top. But then if you're like, nothing's good enough, how are you ever going to appreciate what you've accomplished?
Yeah, I think that for me, it's the knowledge that it's always a journey.
Yeah.
It's always a journey that you're on, and you can always learn to be better. And just being content with not getting the results that you want yet. Because the bar is always shifting. Eventually you'll get the results that you thought you wanted before. Right. But your bar shifted now. You want to be...
Oh, you want to be a little different.
World class.
Yeah.
And your style changes too and stuff like that in photography.
Really, it's the chase.
Yeah, the chase is what kind of drives me.
Yeah.
To get better and better and better.
And because too many people get like, how they get caught up in the result of something or destination of something. Ultimately, what makes anything worth doing is really just that chase and that bar shifting every time. Gives you something to do.
Yeah.
Gives you something to be like, I want to get better and do something.
Exactly. Yep. And the one thing I do struggle with, though, is in terms of doing this, oftentimes you have to spend more money than you would want to. Just being honest. Like I would love to say that you can get professional results and cheap gear. And well, the reality is you can for some areas of photography. For wildlife, no chance in hell. In fact, unfortunately, I've gotten to the point where I actually I'm starting to require bigger and bigger lenses. And that is extremely expensive. Like 500 millimeter lenses, 600 millimeter lens. Those are like $10,000 pieces of kit, right?
$10,000, Jesus.
$10,000, right? Obviously, I'd buy it used because I don't buy anything new. There's no point.
If it works, it works, kind of thing.
Yeah, the optics haven't changed, so you can buy the 10-year-old model of it. It's the same thing as the new one, except the new one is just a little bit lighter. That's the only difference. So yeah, that's what I do, and then you can get it for like $3,000-$4,000, something like that. Expensive, but not outside the realm for a professional photographer.
Right.
But yeah, like sometimes I find that you have to spend the money to make the money. And if you're a hobby photographer right? That sounds like a horrible idea.
Spending that much as a hobby.
But if you need to get those professional results, you need to get them.
There's no other way around.
There's no other way around it besides spending the money, and that's one thing that kind of irritates me sometimes about other photographers when people say it's not about the gear, and you're right, it's not about the gear, but the gear does matter to an extent, as long as you have the ability to use it.
Right.
And sometimes what I've seen is that you have people who don't have the ability to use it, and you actually get worse results. It's less forgiving. It's bigger, bulkier. Oftentimes I'll see kind of beginner photographers with professional camera bodies. So, except for if you're in Canon world, the 5D series, 6D, 7D, and 1D series cameras, and the 5Ds are. I'll see a lot of beginner photographers with those. I think because they bought a used model and think it's the kind of be-all, end-all, but they haven't learned enough technical knowledge to actually use these cameras to their extent.
Right, yeah.
And you're actually going to get worse results sometimes.
Definitely the understanding of skill. It's a weird balancing act. Something I've been learning too. It's that you can get the equipment, and the equipment does matter, but then there's also the other aspect. It's kind of like you have to bring your skill up to be able to use said equipment.
Exactly.
And then go back and forth as you keep growing throughout your career or what you do. But it's kind of like when people have the money, why bother with skill? So many people like to think that.
Yeah, you can't buy equipment to replace skill. I know of so many wildlife photographers that will buy the 500 f4, the 600 f4 lens, the $10,000 lenses. They'll buy the 1DX this body, the $7,000 body, and they'll go out there and they'll shoot high resolution garbage.
High resolution garbage.
High resolution garbage.
Nice, but you get that nice crisp 4K trash though.
Yeah, it's actually more like 6K or 8K.
Fair enough. But like in the modern eye, in the regular consumer world, trash still looks good.
Yeah, that's reality. The reality of smartphones is that they've made the bar of photography so much worse that like garbage still looks like when you see a garbage photo from a high resolution camera, it still looks pretty damn good.
Yeah, it's a high resolution camera.
Yeah. So it's interesting seeing how the dynamics are shifting, because it's saturated the market with more photos too, having smartphones.
Yeah.
So in one way, if you're doing, your photo can stand out more, but at the same time, the art in photography is kind of being lost, I guess, because people think it's a lot easier than it is. And
people just like over dump the entire thing with no knowledge of photography, but rather it's like, I have the new phone, or like I can just buy a camera. Yeah, in fact, I've seen it so many times where people think they can just buy a camera and get professional results. Does that bother you? It bothers me a lot. Yeah? Yeah, it bugs me because it's like they have no respect for the career path and the art of photography. And the techniques too, or just there's a lot of knowledge has to go in to be able to produce something, to produce consistent, high quality results. Like any fool can get a good picture once in a while. Yeah, fair enough. But the consistency is the hard part. Oh yeah, because it's. But here's what I'm kind of interested in as regarding photography. How does professional photography work? Like you could like say you gave it to a magazine or something like that, but how would a professional photographer make money? So in that sense, and in that regard, how would the amateurs, if you will, people who don't know what photography really is, but they still be like, this is a good picture, that could be the public majority. Right? Yeah. So the thing with professional photography, it's about creating work that has a deeper, it's hard to explain. But when you see a photo that's been taken really well by a professional photographer, don't get me wrong, like there's a lot of advanced amateurs that will take equal quality pictures. Sometimes some of them are even better. It's more of like it's a psychological thing. You think that this is not just a good picture, this is an amazing picture. In terms of getting into the realm of professional photography, how you do that and how you make money, it's actually really hard. Like some areas are
professional photography are just collapsing, essentially. Like photojournalism and fashion photography, they're both kind of collapsing areas. So it's much harder to get into those areas. And my kind of way of aiding that is teaching.
Right.
So I work as a photography instructor for Learn Photography Canada, and I also run my own workshops. And that's kind of my biggest chunk of my business plan. And then kind of I have a few other things kind of swinging in soon. Like my selling prints and stuff like that. And then as a backup, I also have portrait sessions I can do.
So there is definitely like a lot you need to think about when it comes to professionally making money as a photographer.
Yes.
Versus just like, I can just find like one thing I can do and that like is great. I can like make money just do that one thing all the time, every time. Unless it's something like teaching and you're really good at what you do.
Yeah, and even the thing with teaching is that to teach well, you need to know almost all areas of photography to a decent level. So you can't, say if I was just a wildlife photographer, I would not be able to teach portraits. I would not be able to teach a landscape. I just wouldn't know how to do it. So that was one of the interesting things for me, is having to learn basically all of the areas in photography, at least to a minimal teachable degree. I found that
Come
pretty
inside.
difficult.
So that's my girlfriend /
Hi.
she also manages the podcast. This is Alex Samaya. Nice to meet you guys. Oh, can you just move the thing aside? See, the good thing about not filming is that interruptions are fine.
Yeah,
So
that's good.
It doesn't matter. So yeah, as you were saying.
Oh man, I forgot what I was saying. I was on a roll, wasn't I? I was talking about teaching.
Yeah, you're talking about teaching because making money. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to know every area in photography, and that was a hard part for me to learn. I just wanted to do wildlife photography, but the reality is that's not that marketable. At least when I was thinking about kind of professional photography before, I could probably scramble a few things in now. I could probably make a bit of money if I do a lot of heavy marketing and stuff like that. But it's difficult though. it's difficult to make money. Most people going to photography fail. And the reality is you have to be, at least to a certain degree, pretty good.
Right.
At it as well. I mean, there are professional photographers who suck. I can go on Instagram and show like 50 of them. I know quite a few of them that suck. But generally, if you want to actually make a good amount of money, you have to be pretty good.
You have to be good. You have to be good at what you do. So do you pursue photography at this point? It's because of the drive to be the best. Not really. It's not financially driven, is it?
It's both now.
Is it?
At this point, it's both now because it's my job and it's my it's my job and it's my business now. And I realize that my value as a scientist at university is probably kind of worthless, to be completely honest. I had a very rude awakening when I went out and I went on a field course in Nova Scotia, and I found out what scientists were actually doing and how they were making money, how much money they actually made. And I said, oh crap, this is not good. You spend a lot of time trying to become the best in an area, and the earning potential is significantly worse than the equal time spent skilled photographer. In theory, I make more money than some of my professors, some of my instructors, through like not doing that much photography work in balancing it, which is it's a real big problem. But in terms of money per hour, I'm making more money than they are. Right. And they've used their entire life on this.
And now it's just kind of like a dead end of sorts.
Yeah, you have to, if you're in science, you have to do it because you love it, or else just get out now.
Get out. As soon as you can, just leave.
Unless you have nothing else to do, then I'm sorry, you're screwed. You have to continue.
Or like your parents tell you to pursue something.
Oh yeah,
perhaps.
yeah,
things like that. Yeah, for sure.
And that's a hard thing, right? Having the parental pressure,
right,
to do a certain area. Like I'm at the point now, at least with my photography, that my parents recognize that I'm actually quite good at it, and that I actually am like good enough to make money. But before, like I was heavily dissuaded from, going into professional photography.
Like your parents didn't want you to?
They did not want me to. And I don't think they still want me to.
Yeah.
But at least they respect the fact that I'm actually competent at it.
Yeah.
So I'm not wasting my time.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, if I was considering like dropping out of school at one point. It was more for like mental health issues. But having photography as like a crutch if I need to,
right? Yeah,
is quite good. So now I'm trying to run a sort of like two kind of aspects of my life: the photography and schooling, and hopefully one of those will not fail. I think photography is going to be the ones that's going to be successful, though. In all honesty, because my value as a scientist is entirely based in my value as a photographer.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, it's going back to
photography.
So your parents are just gonna not like you at the end of the day. That's what you're telling me.
I mean, I've been the disappointment in my family anyway. So
yeah, so it's kind of like you're just going on with it.
Yeah,
so there's no surprise.
Yeah, my brother's in engineering now. He can take all those life goals that they wanted me to have and just give it to him, and I can be the disappointment.
Oh, so you've chosen it straight up to be the disappointment.
Oh yeah.
Fair enough, but like no, it's not like you're broke poor or anything like that. Sure, you're not in like engineering. Controversial after that new lens. I could be dirt poor.
Well, you know what? That's one of the other problems with professional photography is that when you're starting off, starting any business, you sometimes end up spending more money than you have.
Yeah, so you can start most things at a loss.
Yeah, but that's the same with any business that you're starting. Unless you already have like just a ton of money.
Unless your parents are rich and they support you like that, yeah.
Yeah, and my parents do support me to an extent. But it's not really. It's hard. It's just hard.
Yeah.
When my philosophy is that I have enough faith in my own abilities, despite the self-doubt.
Despite the crippling self-doubt.
Despite the crippling self-doubt, I have enough confidence in my abilities that I know that I can make the money back on anything I purchased. And I'm trying to purchase expensive but smart things.
Smart choice. Smart spending.
Yeah. Like, I know that I'll buy used cameras, and I know that if I have to sell them, they have the exact same resale value as what I bought them for.
Oh.
So my advice is never buy a new camera, especially a professional camera. Like I just bought a Canon 5 DSR. It's a $5,000 camera. I bought it for $2,000, and I know the resale value is around $2,500 to $3,000 here. So actually, if I sold it, I can make money.
Oh.
Yeah.
So you really got, especially I think in photography, because like things are mad expensive.
Yeah, mad expensive.
All the time.
Yeah, and yeah, it's just a very hard, risky thing. A lot of it's not uncommon for photographers to just like shell out $50,000 on equipment to improve their photography, and
that's a gamble at that point. If you don't have a skill, it's kind of like you're praying that maybe this equipment somehow makes the money back.
Yeah, and my advice is make sure you have the skills to use the equipment before you buy it, and if you do, then it will make a difference. If you don't, you're just going to, again, have high resolution garbage.
Right. But hey, it's higher res garbage.
Yeah, it's higher res garbage.
Give me 1 second. Let me test one thing.
Okay.
I just want to check that mic.
Hopefully it's recording.
No, it's been. That'd be awkward.
That'd be very awkward.
Yeah, that'd be awkward. Okay. All right. So besides photography in that aspect, how do you, if people wanted to, say pursue photography? You've seen Samaya on the podcast before.
Yep.
And her kind of, I don't know if you fully listened to it, but like her journey of like as a photographer, what she wants, that ambition, that drive. If people wanted to come into photography, considering the price point, considering that you gotta be like mentally insane to like truly climb up to the top, and fighting this crippling self-doubt at times, or like, because, and especially with the market, because like you could be like, oh, I'm doing it, blah blah blah, and then see higher resolution garbage getting more likes, right? Yeah,
that's the thing. That's one of the problems that I see a lot. My advice to people starting photography who want to be professional photographers is definitely buy a used camera. That's the first piece of advice. You'll save hundreds, thousands, maybe tens of thousands of dollars. I think I've saved tens of thousands of dollars doing that.
Just buying used.
Buying used, yeah. And oftentimes you can get used that's in brand new condition, because what happens, people buy it and then they spend it 2 weeks doing photography and then they quit.
Okay.
Yeah. My advice also would be, if you're getting into photography thinking you're going to be a professional photographer, you got to change your mindset, because that's not how you should think about going into it. If you think about it that way, you'll fail. Because you just might not have the ability to do it, in all honesty. I would hope that you would go into it because you like photography or like some aspect of it, not because you think it's easy.
Right. Definitely a lot more difficult.
It's one of photography is one of the hardest things that I've done.
Now that's the assumption, you've done a lot of things.
Yeah.
But people don't know.
Yeah.
If you did a lot of things or you did two things.
Yeah. I've switched degrees in university a lot. I started in food science, then went to paleontology. Now I'm doing a double major in biology and earth science. And photography is harder than any of the classes you have there. Any scientific thing you'll do, getting good at photography is harder.
Yeah, because it's also because if you do something like that, the answers are somewhat given to you.
Yeah,
you're
exactly
taught to do this, learn it from here. This is what you need to know, learn it. But when you get into photography, or just going into YouTube, for example, or if there's anybody out there who's doing anything remotely different, there's not really a textbook definition.
Yeah, for sure.
Per se. So especially photography, because then you can spend a lot of money, not know what the hell you're doing.
Yeah, photography, well, even for a professional, it can be a money pit to an extent. Mm-hmm. And you need to make that money pit work for you.
Somehow, some way.
Somehow, in some way.
Yeah.
I'm finally getting there with making money.
Yeah.
But
not a lot of people can have insane growth.
Exactly. I'm better than my photography is better than a lot of people who spent their entire lifetime doing it and they never got to the point that I got to in weeks. Mm-hmm. And part of it's the mindset you have.
What do you mean the mindset? What mindset do you need to? Because how can somebody spend years in something and somebody else just come up?
It's the lack of drive to improve. You think you're good enough already.
You gotta be mentally. So basically,
insane.
You're saying you gotta besides the insanity, you when it comes to your craft, whether it be making videos, making music, making photography, making anything different, you essentially have to look at yourself and say this isn't good enough. And somehow, instead of being crippling depressed about it, you gotta be borderline upset that it's not good enough, and that leads you to make it better.
Yeah. In fact, you might end up being crippling depressed.
I believe me. Yeah, I know. Only recently have I really gotten my thoughts together on making content or getting the podcast up and running. There was always kind of I'm kind of doing it, but I'm not insane enough.
Yeah.
Or rather, I wasn't. Only now am I noticing my insanity ramp up too. And it's kind of like a double-edged sword. It's kind of you'll never be yes, I'm doing it, because the moment you get comfortable, you're done. That's it.
Yeah, exactly. And with photography, it's a huge gamble because of just the massive amount of money that it is to get professional level results. And it's pretty scary, to be completely honest. Buying lenses that are worth as much as a car, for example, or it can be a daunting task. And you also need to be realistic with your own abilities. Will that lens actually make you better, or will getting lighting make you better? Knowing what gear to buy in what order as well, and if you need gear.
What about skill set? How do you ever know? Maybe photography, maybe something else. How do you know in anything? Is there a question you can ask yourself of sorts to know if you're good at your skill? Because the way I think of it, is that getting equipment increases how much skill you can have. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like a water tank, if you think. Yeah. Equipment is increasing that water tank. But how do you know you filled it up? How would you ever know?
Well, in some areas of photography, like wildlife, you'll start reaching limitations through the equipment.
Yeah.
and you have to question what the limitations are. Because if it's like not being a long enough lens, sometimes that's just you not being good enough photographer and not getting close enough. For portraits, though, sometimes there's like really small things like the way the lens renders and how the camera renders colors and shades, and so that if you start recognizing that and you want to improve that, sometimes then it becomes more worthwhile to buy into better gear. But you also need to know what better gear, because some quote unquote better gear is not actually better. It will give cleaner results, but it won't give more meaningful results. So to know when you've hit a limitation with your gear is to really understand what you can and can't do with it, and where those barriers are. And if you need to go over those small barriers that you have.
So you really have to like ask yourself, sit down with yourself.
Yeah.
Instead of just being like, oh, I just need to, because this kind of mentality happens anywhere.
Exactly.
All the time. Right. So actually, because I've gone through this when I was thinking about like, oh, do I need better lighting? Do I need a better machine to render? Do I need this or that? You know what I mean? And many times I did catch myself thinking maybe I'm not good enough. I'm not editing faster enough. I'm not efficient enough, that I'm thinking like my equipment's going to magically solve my problems.
Yeah. Like the equipment doesn't solve a lack of skill.
Definitely. It just gives you more room to flex your skill.
Yeah.
But if you have no skill to begin with at that point.
Yeah. And oftentimes you'll start introducing like less forgiving equipment. Like some of the professional lenses.
Yeah.
You really have very, very good technical skill to actually get through them. And that's another thing with photography. You have to look at your technical skill versus your artistic skill. Those are very different things. As a professional photographer, you have to know if you're leaning more into the technical realm of photography or into the artistic realm, or both. Like you can do both, but to become a real master in photography, you have to have both aspects, especially nowadays standards. Back in the day, like before you could get away with having like a out of focus picture by a slightly motion blurred picture. But nowadays, just with the high standard that a lot of people are setting in the industry, you have to make sure the technique is perfect, and then you have to bring in those other artistic aspects as well. You have to be both an artist and a technician
at the same time. If you're one or the other, you'll fail. You'll straight up fail. And that sounds really harsh, but I think that once you realize that, then you can start learning the other skills that you need. I mean, the world's harsh because, yeah, definitely. Because if a lot of people like to think that it's that simple to just like, not even just equipment, but like a lot of people may look at these kind of things, say, I want to be a photographer. I want to be a YouTuber. I want to make SoundCloud music. I don't know. But to know, hey, SoundCloud rappers are making bare guap. You know, that's a high standard. I wish. But like that combination of art mixed with real life technicality, a lot of people look at it like harsh. Is that a sign, you would say? Because a part of me is it's kind of like it challenges your drive. It challenges your desire.
Yeah.
Because when I hit that wall, I had to look at myself like, you know, I had to know all the nitty-gritty detail about editing, about this and that. Like, I was the technician behind the camera as much as I had to be the creativity that in front of the camera. So when I hit that too, it really challenged my desire to even do any of this.
Yeah.
Every time.
And that happens a lot. And I find that photographer, like usually you end up, it's actually sort of there's a weird gender disbalance here in photography.
Okay.
Where you have men coming in from the technical side, usually, and women coming in from the artistic side. And all the great photographers it doesn't matter if you're a man or woman, you combine them both. But I find that it can be, teaching, as someone who's taught both men and women photography, I find that...
And everything else in between?
Well, yeah. Everything else in between.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, you have to recognize that they're going to come in from a different approach.
Right.
And I've noticed that from teaching lighting to women is a lot harder than teaching it to men. But teaching composition to men is a lot harder than teaching it to women.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
So people just kind of understand one versus the other. So you really have to know how. So it's kind of so do you, I don't know if you, because you said you study biology. Is that like your biology course coming in? Like,
well, I think it's just the way that men and women
process the different
process things, and also just how they view photography as well. A lot of men do it because it's a really fun technical thing. Like cameras are like toys to them.
Okay.
Yeah. The average male photographer enjoys photography as just a fun toy, essentially.
Okay, it's like toy for grown-ups.
Yeah,
Okay.
I find that women generally like to get into photography more for the actual art of it, but they forget that there is a huge technical aspect as well.
So you can't really ignore one or the other.
Yeah,
at all.
Exactly. You have to have them both, and so and knowing also what area in photography that you want to go into, it also can make a really big difference for how much technicality is needed. So say if you want to do product photography, there's almost no art needed for that.
Yeah,
it's all pure technical knowledge.
Yeah.
You have other areas like wildlife and macro where it's very heavy on both of them. Then you have like editorial, which to do really good editorial photography, you need to have very, very good understanding of lighting. But for like a lower tier of editorial, which there is still a professional market for currently, it's more of an artistic type endeavor. So you just need to know what the requirements are for each area.
Right. So as a photographer, because it seems like you've learned, or rather you hurdled yourself into a completely new world.
Yes.
In this year alone.
Yeah.
You went from like just not knowing much, maybe just the interest, to like going full blown psychopath, to having workshops in Toronto, to having classes in Ottawa.
Yeah.
Even publishing some of your work even to certain places. And the thing is, when you go through such a huge hurdle or a huge change, when you talk about consistency, when you talk about the drive to build or the drive to succeed, you've went through a lot that I would say like a professional photographer would. But regardless of that, is there a parallel that you can draw a conclusion from, like that says like it's not just photography related? Because I'm sure this kind of struggle, this kind of things that you had to go through as a human, not even as a photographer, can be translated to other people, can be translated to anything else.
It's definitely it's a similar story that you would get in other areas where it takes a lot of work and a lot of risk.
Right. Yeah.
So scientists are a great example of you basically go through the same sort of process. You have to jump all in, and earning potential might be horrible. It might be brilliant, but usually it's going to be horrible. And you have to really get to know your topic and your field to very, very high level. Same way with being a doctor as well. Any kind of artist, there's just this huge risk you got to take, and a lot of self-doubt, a lot of competition, and it's a.
How do you battle that? How do you fight through?
Well, that's a can of worms right there. Battling through that doubt and people telling you can't do it.
Right.
The people telling you you'll fail, you're bound to fail, is extremely difficult. I have not managed to cope with it completely, to be completely honest. And I don't know if I'll ever will be able to completely deal with it, but you can alleviate by having faith in yourself, your own ability, and letting that drive you to prove everyone wrong. Like that's a large drive in why I do a lot of things in photography. Like when I applied for my teaching job, this is with another company, not my own company, and I was getting fed up when people were saying, "Alex, you're not gonna make any money." It's like, well, screw this.
People told you that?
People said, "Alex, you're not gonna make any money doing photography. There's no money here." So I'm like, okay. I got angry, applied for the job, got it immediately. They told me there's no money here, and this is because these are photographers who had failed because they didn't have the drive to be good enough. And
so it's people from your own field of work.
My own family.
Your own family.
My own family. Yeah. Hopefully they're not going to watch this because they know who they are.
No, but even then, that's hard. I don't think anybody truly. I don't think you can cope with these emotions at all.
Oh yeah, I don't think you can.
The only thing to do, I think, what people forget about life is that instead of coping, what you need to know is how to just deal with them. Mm-hmm. They're like hurdles that you need to always jump over.
Yep.
You will never be indestructible like that.
Exactly.
No amount of practice, no amount of success will ever make you indestructible in life. You'll never have a life without problems.
Yep.
Ever.
Yeah, and you'll always have people who will look at your work and think it's pretty shit. They'll think it's pretty bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they'll criticize you publicly sometimes.
Yeah.
Or they'll criticize you to your face. And just a few different ways you can cope with that. My strategy actually is to take the criticism and try to use it and see if maybe they're right. Sometimes they're not, but maybe they are right. And I think that's a good way to improve as well. So don't listen to the haters necessarily, but
That's pretty cliche.
but sometimes you're wrong and they're right, and you actually do suck, and you have to just accept that and get better.
So really, it comes down to when you understand the fact that you're not going to give up on something.
Yes.
That way, even when anybody says anything, I think truly when you truly look at yourself and say, I'm not going to quit, that's when criticism works for you. Because otherwise, any sort of hardship, you'll look at it like an opportunity to quit.
Yep.
But if you can't quit and you've said that to yourself, there's like, well, let me see what they're saying, and then I'm just going to improve. There's nothing else to do.
Yeah, like I've had people straight up insult my work to my face.
Oh my God.
My own girlfriend insult my work to my face. She does it routinely, actually. But you know what? She's right. If she can see, because she's not a photographer, if she can see a problem with it, then other people will see a problem with it.
Right.
So the problem is you just fix it. I sent her a picture that I did with almost like a film simulation, and she said it looks like shit. It looks low quality and it looks like garbage. So I'm like, okay, I'll never do that again.
I thought what happened to taking criticism and building it better.
Yeah, well, to some extent, what you're doing is bad, and there's no way to make it better.
So you're just completely giving up on that aspect of it.
Well, you just need to shift your priorities and move to another area.
Definitely.
Right. My own photography style I used to shoot more grainy pictures, and it's honestly because I just didn't know how to shoot cleaner pictures.
So you were just trash.
So I made that part of my style that it sucked. And that works for some photographers really well.
Okay.
But for me, I was like, that's not good enough. I want to be world class. I want it to be as clean as possible. So I just adapted the way I shot, adapted my style, and that's what has to happen. And now it's turning out better.
It's turning out a lot better. So you're saying having a girlfriend who criticizes your work all the time is actually better than a supportive one?
Yeah, they have to be supportive and critical.
Right.
But they have to. It's important that the people around you have good intentions. They want to make you better. They don't want to break you down. Right, and that's the intent they have is what's really important. So surround yourself with people who want you to be the best you can be. If everyone's telling you all of your work is fantastic, they're lying to you. Not all of it is. Mm-hmm. No matter how good of a photographer you are, some of your pictures will suck. There's world-class photographers that I look. Sometimes I'll put a picture out there, and I'm like, wow, that's pretty bad. It's like I could do a better job.
Right.
And that just happens. It's just how it is. And it's not. You won't always get perfect work out there. But in letting people criticize your work should be a learning opportunity.
Every time. As a photographer, one last final question. As a photographer, though, do you, like most people, I assume you worry about the future or think about it?
Yeah.
Do you?
Yeah, I do. All the time. And in fact, the photography industry is starting to collapse a little bit. And I'm trying to put out work that cannot be replaced with technology. So I'm trying to, for example, some people will shoot in a style that you can effectively replicate it with a phone nowadays. The trick to get around that is to shoot to so much of a higher degree of quality that it cannot be matched. And that's something that people don't want to accept, I find, in the photography world. That there's people that can just take their phone out, snap a picture just as good as theirs, even though they spent years doing it. And sometimes that's just a stylistic thing. So kind of adapting your own photography to the needs of what's out there is really important. That's why I wouldn't. That's why I personally would never dive into fashion photography, for example, where it's really hard to get people to pay you for that. It's hard. It's essentially a losing proposition constantly. So I've told myself I'll avoid that unless someone offers me a job in it for like, they have to pay me a good amount for me to actually accept it.
Right. But doing it solo, kind of on your own.
Doing it solo on your own, and that being your only area, wouldn't be my personal strategy for securing your own future in your career. That's why I've kind of dived into multiple aspects
of photography
and teaching as well, because I think the teaching photography won't die, even if some of the
whether somebody's a hobbyist or they're trying to be more professional.
Yeah,
everybody could just teach and learn, right?
Exactly. Yeah, and I think that for a lot of people who are also in photography, finding a good teacher is important to get better.
Definitely. Because that's something only a teacher can teach you.
Yeah.
Otherwise, because you have to be on the field of sorts.
Yeah. There's only a few different ways you can really learn.
Yeah, you can't technically teach them over Skype or theory. Kind of like light should be coming through here. You really have to get a feel for it, and practice definitely makes perfect, eh?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, especially with concepts like lighting. You either have to go and spend a bit of money to take a class, take one of my workshops. Or you have to just leap of faith and just buy a bunch of lighting gear and learn it. That's what I did, and I wouldn't recommend that to anyone. I'd recommend someone actually take a class.
Because that'd be better.
It would be better for most people, unless you're like insane like I am.
If you're just as crazy, if you're as hungry as wanting to be the best the world and the universe, the solar system has to offer. If you're not like that, take a course.
Yeah, I recommend taking a course.
Take a course.
Preferably mine.
Yeah, take his course.
$650.
Yeah, that's a good price for like what he teaches you. He's a professional.
Yeah, that is what it is a good price.
So where can people find you? Tell them again. So
you can find my website at alexperdidasphoto.com, or you can find me on Instagram at alex_perdidas.
Yeah, I'll definitely link his accounts on the description. Even in Spotify, I'll still put it up on the description. Definitely take a look. Alex, it's been a pleasure having you here. It's been amazing seeing you after 4 years.
Yeah, it's been a while. I love being here. Yeah, the hair's part of the photographer look, actually.
Oh, yeah. So you have to be like
there's a certain look that you have to have.
Oh, yeah.
It's part of your marketing. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's crazy. So the hat kind of goes with the hair. It comes down.
Yeah.
Is the beard a part of it? Or
yeah,
is
the
just
beard's part of it. I will not... I trimmed it just for this so it looked acceptable. But... generally, it's a lot worse looking, and
so you gotta look like a homeless person.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
You just have to have a distinct look. You don't have to look homeless like me, but you could. I wouldn't recommend looking like a hipster because then you look like everyone else who does it. So just have something that's unique.
That's unique. You know, to be honest, most successful billionaires in the world who are best in their field dress up like crap. Mark Zuckerberg, Steve Jobs, you.
Yeah.
So, you know what it is. Again, Alex, thank you for being here. It's been an honor. And if you guys want to check him out, definitely check him out. I'll give him a shout out on the description. Great photography. I love some of your pictures. And also, we have to take a selfie for Instagram.
Sure, sounds good.
Cool. And that's it. I hope you guys take care. And I hope you guys found something informative out of Alex and I talking today. Definitely check out the podcast. It comes out every Monday at 7 a.m. Alex, do you want to say anything before you leave?
No, I think you pretty much said it.
All right. I hope you guys take care. And see you in the next one. Peace.